After the hustle and bustle of E3, let's slow down to a crawl here, take a deep breath, and take an even closer look at Breath of the Wild sequel. Between cross-referencing both trailers, my personal findings, and people's theories posted online, I have a bit more information about how things will go down in the highly anticipated sequel. This won't be a 100% full breakdown of everything, rather more focused on interesting points that I haven't seen too much talked about yet. We still do Breath of the Wild content to this day, so if you want to see more from us, let us know by liking this video. Now, let's take a closer look. Even though there were only short snippets of the Ganondorf scene in this trailer compared to the first trailer, these small scenes built more context and answers that weren't so clear from the first trailer alone. Using reference points of when Link's arm gets affected by the new entity and the malice, and when we see Ganondorf's malice-filled eyes are active, we can partially piece together what's happening at the beginning of Breath of the Wild sequel. Let's take a short look at my possible version of what happened, then slow it back down. Now let's take a closer look and describe some key scenes. The first one of note is this scene here, where the finger moves. By the way Zelda is acting calmly and the shots before, I'm very sure the seal hand is still on Ganondorf at this point. But the way this is portrayed, it seems Ganondorf has some powers and is able to slightly move while sealed, and or was triggered by the arrival of Link and Zelda, which is understandable. I mean, this is possibly the entirety of the Triforce standing in one room we're talking about here. At this point, something happens and the room starts to shake, likely caused by Ganondorf, and the ground gives way, causing Zelda to fall through. While Link goes to save her, the most important sequence happens next. The seal hand catches Link. Putting 2 and 2 together, this is now highly likely that the seal hand released Ganondorf to try and save Zelda and Link's fall, although now we know that it was only half successful. Now that Ganondorf is free of the hand seal, his eyes of malice come to life, as seen in the next shot of him seemingly summoning more malicious malice from the second trailer. This is likely when Link was attacked, as his right arm is still normal at this time, and all throughout the game, it seems like this arm is fused with a sealing arm, so this arm fusing is definitely the last thing that happens. At this point, it's pretty clear what happens next, with the malice spreading throughout Hyrule Castle, lifting it skyward. It's possible during or after this castle raising sequence that Link then fuses with the entity, fairly likely to cure the malice that damaged his right hand. Since this undergarment definitely gives off more Zonai-ish vibes than his normal blue undergarments in this scene, it's likely he woke up in the sky, which is often shown off with this type of clothing. While this edit gives much more context to the situation, there are obviously many elements missing, so hopefully if another trailer drops in the future, we can further build upon the story. Clearly, something has happened between Link and the Master Sword, as this is the final shot in the small timeline that we have of Link having the Master Sword with him. He has no gauntlet on his arm compared to before, possibly from the previous malice attack, so this must have happened after this shot. So at this point, it is possible he is unable to wield the Sword of Evil's Bane after being affected by malice since the sword is sheathed. And since these shots are highly likely to happen in this order of acquiring and then settling in the new arm, it's inferred that Link passed out, and may have lost his equipment against his will, which is an obvious reset point as the beginning of the game. An interesting point with this situation though is if there's ever a problem with the Master Sword or it is misplaced, it returns to the Korok Forest. But in this case, as proven in the trailer, the Deku Tree is gone and even possibly dead in the sequel. So maybe Korok Forest and subsequently the sword pedestal could have problems as well. The fate of the Master Sword is severely unclear at this point. We just don't know how it will appear in the future. While there are many obvious and subtle nods to previous games such as Twilight Princess, Ocarina of Time, and Skyward Sword, I personally think that Miyazaki influences in themes and tones are too large to ignore. In the original Breath of the Wild, there were already so many things that you could pick out that shows Miyazaki's influences, but the astounding thing is that in just 2 small trailers for the sequel, a game we know barely anything about, we've seen references for 2 of Miyazaki's films multiple times, Princess Mononoke and Castle in the Sky. From roots growing through floating landmasses filled with stone paths, to a pair of explorers going through glowing caves, and cursed tendrils attacking the hero's arm, the nod to Studio Ghibli's work is still undeniable. At this point, it's pretty much confirmed that the mysterious Zonai, or whatever this race's name is, has an integral part in the upcoming sequel. The references to patterns and designs are really hard to miss. The Zonai are an ancient warlike tribe from the Faron region, and architecture from their ruins in the Faron region are sparsely seen throughout Hyrule. Examples such as the Dragon's Breath shield, carvings on the walls, and this pillar design definitely give off Zonai's involvement. Dragons also seem to have some general importance. As the music played at the end of the trailer, half of Zelda's lullaby is played by an erhu. A Chinese instrument that is also used in the dragon's theme. This is telling because there are already theories floating around the dragon's portal, and how that ties into the world above. These themes and locations may hold some importance in the future. One thing that is confirmed after staring at the shield for a while is that this is not one piece of equipment, rather definitely an attachment to a regular shield. The shield Link is holding is definitely the wooden shield, but it is still unknown if you are able to properly block with this massive thing in front of you. Another thing to think about is if bullet time is returning. There certainly wasn't enough combat in this teaser to get any concrete information, but I'm wondering if the slowdown mechanic is returning to the sequel at all. This backflip didn't trigger any sort of flurry rush, although it could be a sidestep dodgeable attack that they dodged incorrectly to not trigger it, or this attack isn't flurry rushable at all. Nintendo has shown this mechanic off in previous Breath of the Wild original trailers, so they may be reworking mechanics behind the scenes, or the studio is simply not showing everything off in these trailers. Also, an important note just by seeing these islands in the sky are the island's wall textures. They seem very unfriendly for climbing, with aggressive, almost 45-degree walls at some points and jagged edges with almost no places to rest. It's possible that these sides are mechanically designed just like shrine walls, unclimbable and making you fall down if you attempt to climb it. If that's true, this empty gap where roads end may require a special skill to cross the gap of this size. You couldn't just jump and paraglide across this if the walls are unclimbable. While it could be as simple as some magic bridge that appears here, I'm still crossing my fingers for some sort of grapple arm ability, which, with this creature's similar energy and seemingly extendable neck design, could be a template for Link's extendable arm. And this has been in concept art before. I mean, crazier concept art has come true, so who knows. And those are all the points that I had that were worth bringing up. Of course, we're very excited for the next trailer and the final release, so we'll be delving very deep into the game when it comes out. As mentioned earlier, we still do tips, tricks, and breakdowns of the first Breath of the Wild, so stick around for everything Zelda, and keep it here on GameSpot.